Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, and welcome to another live at the waterhole. And first up, we're at the Old Donya Lodge in Kenya with it looks like 1 ton, our very big Tusker over on the other side of the waterhole. My name is Ralph Kirsten, and what does the bush hold in store for us today? Well, with a good start like this, I'm pretty sure I think we're going to get lots and lots of animals coming down to the waterholes to drink and cool off. Now, as per usual, please don't forget that this is a live and interactive experience, so we'd love for you to jump on board with us and send us through your questions and your comments. So you can do that by going on the Wild Earth website, register. You can also join the conversation on X, formerly known as Twitter, using the hashtag Wild Earth. Also, the QR code as it appears on your screen. What is it that you'd like to see? What would you like to chat about? Whatever it is wildlife related, send it on through. As we see this old boys club here once again. It's always stunning here in Kenya when the big tuskers come through. And nice surprise for us to start off this wonderful Saturday. I hope you're all enjoying the day so far. And let's hope for lots of action around the waterholes. Quite a few eland there. I've been seeing more and more as the days go on. There's quite a few zebra in the background as well, and a Maasai giraffe waiting its turn. So a couple of comments already coming through. Hudson saying, hello, Ralph. Good to be relaxing with you this Sunday. Sunday? Maybe it's Sunday where you are, Hudson. For us, it's a Saturday. Still midday for us here in South Africa. And Lenny saying, yay, Ralph. Nice to have you on board, Lenny. Joanne Melo, hello, Ralph. Good to hear you. And always good to have you on board, Joanne. True Beauty comes from within, saying, rise and shine, everyone, from the East Coast. I'm wondering if that's the East Coast of South Africa. Maybe in Springbok country today. Later on, we're playing Ireland. Leopard Lover saying, how's it, Ralph? Loving these tusks. Yeah, and it looks like now 1 ton has left us. He graced us with his presence for a while, just for the opening. Maybe he'll come back. Looks like rather a grey day. It's been quite a huge system moving up from South Africa, and I wonder if it's now arrived into the parts of Kenya where we are now. Oh, one of the eland might try and sneak in here. Yeah, these elephant bulls can be a little bit or bullyish here next to the waterhole. We've seen them chasing lots of animals around, and one going so far as to impaling a giraffe as well. So sometimes they're not in the best of moods, especially when they come into must. Doesn't look to me like either of these are in must. They seem rather relaxed and not having that usual swagger and body language that they would have if they got 60 times more the average testosterone. So nice and calm. Always good to see. Mercedes Bean, greetings, Ralph, Wild Earth crew, and chatters. Happy Saturday. Yeah, happy Saturday back to you, Mrs. Mercedes Bean. Nice to have you on board once again. So, just a little article on the World Wildlife Organization. Speaking of what is ivory and why does it belong on elephants? Because obviously, this is the reason why they are poached. We've all seen photographs of majestic elephants sporting long off white tusks on either side of their trunks. And we obviously often see the big tuskers here too, as well as in the Tembe Elephant Park. There's some big tuskers there as well. This ivory is both beautiful on the animals and essential to the species' survival. But what exactly is it? Ivory tusks are actually massive teeth that protrude well beyond the mouths of the elephant. Like our own teeth and those of many mammals, these tusks are rooted. The tusk is made up of dentine, a hard, dense, bony tissue, and the whole tusk is wrapped in enamel, the hardest animal tissue and the part of the tusk that manages the most wear and tear. So elephant tusks evolved from teeth, giving the species an evolutionary advantage. They serve a variety of purposes: digging, lifting objects, gathering food, stripping bark from trees to eat, and defense and fighting. And the tusks also protect the trunk, another valuable tool for drinking, breathing, and eating, among other uses. Just as humans are left or right handed, elephants too are left tusked or right tusked. The dominant tusk is usually more worn down from frequent use, and we often try and work out which one, in fact, they prefer using. But both male and female African tusks, while only the male Asian elephants, and only a certain percentage of males today, have tusks. So behind every piece of ivory, and this is obviously in terms of their protection for fishing, whether it be a full tusk or a carved trinket, is a dead elephant. Poachers kill about 20,000 elephants every single year for their tusks, so then traded illegally in the international market to eventually end up as ivory trinkets. And this trade is mostly driven by demand for ivory in parts of Asia. The WWF is at the forefront of efforts to galvanize governments and the public to stop wildlife crime through a global campaign to apply the strengths of the World Wildlife Network. So they influence with their partners and governments and the passion of supporters and people like us on Wild Earth as well. Also got a reasonably big rip in his ear. Not too bad. And it can sometimes grow as they age and almost widen. strip further. So Canine Girl was saying, "Hey everyone, hope you're having an amazing day. Smiley, brilliant. Ralph, and one, great live at the waterhole. Nice to have you on board, Canine Girl." Ginny saying, "Why do elephants always rest their trunks on their tusks?" Ginny, I think it's just convenient. As their body is, they obviously also take advantage of the convenience of certain things. So sometimes just hanging it over the almost like hanging your arm over the top of your head, or just some kind of movement that you may do, which you find relaxing when you're standing in a position. For instance, I like to put my hands on my hips, and maybe the elephant in that way is just relaxing, and often it is sort of just resting it over the trunk because it's there. Obviously, the ones that have their tusks going in different directions and so on, they wouldn't be able to do it. So not all of them can. I did see a very sad video somewhere on social media where there was a little baby elephant without a trunk at all. Not sure what happened, whether it was a crocodile or a snare or something, but a very young elephant. And so it would obviously now have quite a long life ahead with very little use then in the front. So, I mean, these animals are resilient, but it would have been very interesting and will be interesting to see how that little guy fares. We've seen an elephant here that's got quite a bad injury. It's probably as a result of a snare. And apparently it's quite old though, but it's left a hole. Not only the cut, but it's actually entered or pierced into the nasal passage. So it obviously wouldn't have the amount of suction that it normally would have, but it seems to be surviving and doing pretty well. It looks in good health. And so we keep looking out for it. And then good to see that it is still doing well, in fact. So Granny Mango was asking, does it look to you like something stabbed him in his side and he's healed from it? Weird shaped torso. I'm not sure if it's still the same elephant and not that other one that we were looking at previously, Granny Mango. Sometimes they can get, if they have had a wound, there will obviously be scar tissue remains afterwards. And sometimes elephants do, but it mainly exhibits or shows symptoms on the trunk, but they do get the herpes virus, which shows up in these kind of lumps, and sometimes it can be on the body as well. Um, so I'm not quite seeing what you may have seen or thought there may have been an injury, and also lots of these wrinkles, and sometimes the way that they stand, it sort of just folds the skin. And so it can look a little bit like a wound. You have to watch them a little bit closer and see if it in fact was something like that. It looks like the Illies now might have moved off. Andrew, the video guy, saying good morning, Ralph, and the 1 ton of Ellie. Fun on screen. Absolutely. Always awesome with these big guys here in Kenya. Okay, I'm in. Do you want to do check? No. No, Right, so just a couple of little technical difficulties with the sound in the background. So sorry for that, but I'm back, and so is One Ton. So what a privilege. We can sit and watch him for the next while. He doesn't always stay very long, so it's nice just to sit and watch him. And he seems to have this habit of flicking his tongue around, his trunk around like that. Him in particular. I wonder if he's got some kind of irritation in the trunk or if that's just his thing, you know. Sometimes people walk with in a certain way or they've got a little twitch or whatever it might be. Maybe that's his. So Joanne Mello was saying, hoping to see a croc today. Yeah, well, obviously we won't see one here, but definitely, Joanne, I'm sure we might see them out sunning themselves. It's been a rather cool period throughout the provinces of South Africa. So a lot of the reptiles, especially crocodiles and hippos, will also be out the water trying to warm themselves up. So we do have a good chance. And Canine Girl saying he's stunning. Only my second time watching him properly. Yeah, and he's giving us a good viewing today. So this is wonderful. Asbo was saying, hi, Ralph, from a very cold East Coast UK. During the week, it was mentioned that One Ton had what appeared to be a crack in his right tusk and showed some signs of bleeding. Have I heard anything? No, I haven't. But we can have a look now. I haven't seen anything of note up until now. That head shake might indicate that there's another elephant potentially moving into the area. So he's just let him know that he's here. Either that or he's irritated by something. Joanne Mello asking Ralph, do they fill this waterhole every day? They do keep it topped up, Joanne. Sometimes it does, you can see it's dropped quite drastically. But, these elephants do suck a lot of water out of it. And especially we've seen up to 10, 12 big bulls like this all here at once. They're taking out a good few thousand liters. And then the herds of zebra, etc., and so it does empty quite quickly. But I think I don't know if they've got it on a ball valve or something like that. And as the water maybe gets to a certain level, it might even automatically fill up. But we've never seen it empty out completely. So Andrew, the video guy, was asking, can the age of this elephant be established by its enormous tusks? So, Andrew, the video guy, it can give you a good indication. I mean, you're obviously not going to have a 30-year-old have such huge tusks as this. But, you can obviously see that he's a fully grown, mature adult. And with the size of tusks, it's been estimated that this individual is in his mid-50s. So he is, an elder, that's for sure. Um, And so, yeah, when they got tusks this size, you would imagine that they're going to be over 50 because it does take that length of time to grow that long. Now maybe he's had enough, maybe not. Turning back around, and you see this constant flicking of the end of his trunk like that, almost like those springs, those little toys. A slinky toy. That's what I was looking for. So the eland now getting a chance. Lovely dewlap on this one. So, and from that question from Asbo, who was asking about the potential injury here. Asbo, obviously elephants and especially bulls, they can have disagreements. They can also fight with each other, more so when they're in must. But it can just be frustration with one another. They can have a bit of pushing and shoving. Maybe one goes a bit too far, and so they can fight with each other. So you often do have these kind of sort of scratches and pokes and little wounds, but they are incredibly resilient. They do normally heal up very well and very quickly as well. Here, the oxpeckers now, obviously coming in on the antelope. So obviously, as always, just looking out for any new research or any news coming from these wilderness areas that we are watching. And I found an interesting, although maybe a little bit sad, article by the New York Times. But I don't mind if things are sad or whatever the reality is, we need to talk about it. And so this is by the New York Times, but written by Shola Laval, speaking on a ban on elephant hunting has collapsed. And this was written in July this year, or maybe it never existed. 5 bulls from the area around a Kenyan wildlife reserve have been shot and killed in Tanzania in recent months. The countries are very different conservation strategies. That's obviously Kenya and Tanzania. On the lush rolling savannas that link northern Tanzania to Amboseli National Park in Kenya, foraging elephants move back and forth on a sloping landscape in the shadow of snow-capped Mount Kilimanjaro. And this is the exact area that we're looking at now. Straight off the back of this elephant, you can see Mount Kilimanjaro on a clear day. But the animals are accustomed to open-sided 4x4s full of tourists on the Kenyan side and seem to sense no danger from the visitors pointing phones. But what the animals probably do not know is that just across the border on the Tanzanian side, which for 3 decades was just as safe as the park, there are now people pointing guns, not cameras. So since September, 5 bull elephants from a population centered around Amboseli have been shot and killed, most likely by trophy hunters in the Tanzanian part of this wildlife corridor. At least 2 were so-called super tuskers, with tusks so long that they swept the ground, much like wonton. There hasn't been a similar cluster of rapid killings in the area since the mid-1990s. And conservationists say it points to a breakdown of a tacit agreement between the countries that banned hunting in the border zone. It also highlights the challenges the neighbors face in aligning different approaches to managing their shared wildlife heritage. Kenya forbids hunting and gets all its wildlife revenue through sightseeing or tourism. While wildlife spotting safaris are an important part of the Tanzanian economy, the country also permits wealthy tourists to shoot big game. And this is heartbreaking for me, said Cynthia Moss, me too, an American zoologist monitoring the roughly 2,000 elephants in the Amboseli herd as director of the Amboseli Trust for Elephants, under which One Ton, I think, also receives protection. About 10 of Amboseli's super tuskers are left, and an additional 15 or so remain across Kenya. She said, I know these elephants, I know how trusting they are, and the killings have sparked an uproar in Kenya. In April, scores of leading conservationists wrote an open letter to the Tanzanian government demanding that the authorities ban hunting within 25 miles of the Kenyan border. And a spokesperson for the Tanzanian Ministry of Natural Resources and Tourism asked for comments, said the country's conservation strategy was based on a strong foundation of regulation, research, and scientific evidence, and noted that Tanzania had one of the most abundant elephant populations in Africa. Government statements in the past have justified hunting on the grounds that it brings in millions in much-needed income. Kenya's Wildlife Service did not respond to repeated requests for comments, but Kadu Sabunya, who heads the African Wildlife Foundation, a conservation organization based in Kenya, said it was unlikely that the elephants had been shot by poachers. He noted that there were no signs of an investigation by the Tanzanian authorities, and if a poacher were to kill an elephant illegally at the same site, they would be dealt with by the law, he said. So it's always difficult when you have these trans-frontier parks and protected areas because, the country's policies don't always align. And it's normally when the foundation of the reserves are made that these agreements are put in place. But then you have regime changes on both sides of the border, and they take up different policies. And so this being, many decades down the road, then the original agreement maybe is not always respected. So it's a sad day, but we also need to respect the sovereignty of the different countries and the policies that they do impose. I think it's just important then to try and support the different countries in terms of tourism and feet on the ground and make that a more viable option than hunting. But it's always a difficult one, and the debate will never end. So Lenny also saying exactly, Ralph, sadness is very much part of reality, especially with nature. Yeah, we do need to deal with it. And we should never sweep anything under the rug just because it might not be easy to hear or to speak about. And Jive Bunny saying that's utterly horrible, Ralph. Yeah, you would just hope that at least with them saying that it is scientifically researched, etc., that those big tuskers have, with evidence, already been shown to have passed on, their genes to a number of females, and at least the potential for lots more big tuskers in the future. But it would be nice if the two countries could align, and we just hope that One Ton doesn't go across the border and get shot himself. That would be a real tragedy. Canine Girl saying, would there ever be a human intervention to not lose tuskers' genes altogether? Canine Girl, it's very important, definitely. I think they would intervene. I think conservationists and rangers and all concerned parties would intervene. I think there could be artificial insemination potential. They could also be doing that with animals in captivity in the aims of releasing them back into the wild, etc. So, we've reached a wonderful age of technology, and I think it's all possible. But we would hope that it doesn't get that far. All right, so lovely start here as always at Old Donyo and Mr. One Ton. But I think it's time to change of place. I think we will be back, that's for sure. But let's go back to South Africa, the Madikwe Game Reserve, and Tau. Obviously, a different giraffe. This is the southern giraffe, a bit smaller than the Maasai giraffe, and more common, especially right across southern Africa. There's a male ostrich there, I think, behind it, or at least behind one of the giraffe, at least getting in for a drink. A little bit easier here at Tau than it is at Old Donyo. It's not such a small little waterhole. They've got lots more space to spread themselves out. And as always, all of the resident waterfowl, the yellow-billed ducks, looks like there might be a red-billed teal there, and lots of calls going on currently. There was a ringneck dove. There's a grey go-away bird that just called. Lots of little blue waxbills whistling away. Yellow-breasted apalus, chin-spot batis. There's a white-faced whistling duck just doing a bit of bobbing there in the water. So Lisa asking, do the different giraffe species have different patterns on their fur? Yes, they do, Lisa. They're not altogether completely different, but you'll find that some have more like squared patterns, the others a bit more round. I think the Maasai giraffe is a bit more sharper corners. Oh, there's our crocodile that we were looking for. Who was that? Joanne Mello, I think. Wanted to see a croc. And you can see this is a favorite spot of theirs. All the tracks that you can see from the different crocodiles that have come up here and been sunning themselves. We've seen 3 of them together here at once. And crocodiles do have the ability to slightly change their colors, not quite as extravagant as the likes of chameleons, for instance, but they can lighten themselves and darken themselves according to their thermoregulation requirements and light absorption or heat absorption. So once they generally get to a point where they have enough heat, warmth, energy, they can then start to lighten, and so that they're reflecting more than they're absorbing. So Mindy Tillapore was saying, my brother used to say this about hunting. If you want to level the playing field, you should have to chase the animal down on foot, catch it, and dispense with it with your bare hands. As much as I like that sentiment, Mindy, I think animals can be dispatched a lot more ethically than with your hands. I think it would take quite a bit to be able to kill an animal, pretty much any with your hands, but maybe that's the point. I think, my ethos has always been, and I teach it to my sons as well, if you kill something, you're going to eat it. You will eat it. So we only kill things that we're going to eat. Um, and I think that's a good lesson in it. And, must be cleaned and gutted, etc., by you. And then, you understand and appreciate that meat. And we give thanks to the animal for then supplying us with that food. So that's my ethos in terms of hunting. And I've always kept it at that. And I only eat and kill what I'm going to eat. Jenna in the UK was saying, hi Ralph, in rare cases where a giraffe is born without markings, will this interfere with their thermoregulation? I understand the marking plays a part in this process. So Jenna, yes, of course it would be different then, but the animals do find and are adaptable. So those animals would maybe not fare as well. And we've often found that when you get the likes of albinos, melanistic, I would say, probably does better than albinos, because having more melanin is actually more advantageous in most cases. It may stand out a bit more from the herd, but definitely helps with the effects of the sun. It may, though, come down to difficulties with heat. So with those differences, I think the perfectly evolved animal at their current state and in the normal average fur colorations across the giraffe is the most optimum for that particular species. And when you do have those color variations, which naturally occur, but are rather rare, you do find that those animals don't fare as well as the average giraffe, for instance. And that goes across the different species as well. Joanne Mello also saying, yes, I love these crocodiles. Would love to see a full grown. You've got to have respect for them. Absolutely. This one, I mean, this is a decent sized crocodile. It's not huge, but it is an adult. They can get quite a lot bigger than this, maybe even double the size. But that's also unusual. It's normally where there's a massive food source, the likes of the Masai River and the Sand River there, where they've got all those wildebeest coming through, zebra, etc. So they've got meat on tap, and so they get humongous. The likes of the Zambezi crocodiles as well. Um, I have noticed for instance, the Kunene River up in the northern boundary of Namibia and Angola. Um, those crocodiles, it was teeming with crocodiles in the Kunene River, but I found that they didn't seem to me, maybe I stand corrected, that they get as big as the likes of the Zambezi and in the Masai Mara. Maybe that's as a result of it being in the desert. There's not as they're feeding more so on fish than on big game. So I would say that that's the reason. And I think it all depends on, obviously, the quality and availability of the food. And if they're only eating fish, then potentially won't grow as big as the crocodiles that are eating red meat. Oh, we had an arm movement there. That might be about all the excitement we get out of this crocodile. That little bird calling is a robin, what I think might be a white-browed scrub robin. Doo-doo-doo-doo-deet. The real songbirds. Well, there's a red hartebeest. A lot of blue wildebeest there off in the background. And a nice herd of elephants have arrived. It's wonderful. It's a nice little herd, that. Number of adult females, quite a few youngsters as well. Lots of giraffes there in the bush line as well, just off on the other side of the waterhole. So Quentin was saying, don't think I've seen red hartebeest here before. Yeah, they're not too common. We do just see a few of them coming through, not a hell of a lot. A couple of days ago, we had seemed what was two bulls fighting, locking horns. Carried on for quite some time. They were kicking up lots of dust. Eventually, we had a winner, and there was no real injuries, so that was good. But Canine Girl asking, have you ever witnessed many crocodile and hippo conflicts? Not really, Canine Girl. It's, the hippos generally understand to keep out of the way of the hippos. So I've only seen I've seen hippos going in to sort of help. Well, when there's a lot of commotion, and a a crocodile has grabbed an animal and they're trying to bring it into the water, and obviously, all the splashing involved. I have seen hippos go across and almost stop the crocodile from continuing with that, and resulting in the crocodile releasing its prey. To keep away from the hippos. So I've seen that occur, but other than that, I've never really seen them actually involved in conflict. The crocodiles generally give a wide berth, and so they generally avoid them. Okay, so lovely stop in here at Tau, but I think it's time for a return to Oldonyo. Where one ton has remained, which is wonderful to see, but he's being joined now by quite a big group of zebra and the onlooking Maasai giraffe, who will most likely just be patient and wait their turn. Oh, a tiny little foal as well. That's lovely. Sun coming out now nicely as well. Let's change from that rather grey colour. Well, looks like it's coming and going. And what a beautiful sight that is. All these black and white stripes with one ton in the background. You can hear that pearl-spotted owlet in the background. And with the initial part of its call, so it was just interesting with that question around, the conflict between hippos and crocodiles from Canine Girl. And I found a little article on Field and Stream just explaining things a little bit better than I could. And they're saying that crocodiles and hippos are the largest and fiercest denizens of Africa's freshwater habitats. While they're not natural rivals, they do not compete for the same food, nor do they normally eat each other. They do occasionally clash when territorial disputes arise. And that's a lot of heft, a lot of teeth, and a lot of power. So who exactly would win in a heavyweight showdown of hippo versus crocodile? I'm saying there's only one winner there, and I'm banking all my money on the hippo. In fact, I'll bet my house on it. But hippos are far bigger than crocodiles and have much bigger mouths. And crocodiles have more teeth and a more powerful bite. And crocodiles are carnivores and stealthily ambush their prey, whereas hippos are herbivores but aggressively protect their territories. So hippos are too big for crocodiles to attack, and they'll chase crocs from their territory if necessary. And I think, if necessary, kill them and just snap them in half as well. I have seen crocodiles feeding on dead hippos. For what reason the hippo died? Oh, that was a massive head shake, chasing the zebra off. But for whatever the reason the hippo died, I'm not sure. It was an adult hippo, and the crocodiles were feeding on it afterwards. But that's not to say that they killed it. That's for sure. I would highly doubt it. This is crazy. I think these zebra just irritate the elephants a little bit, because there's so many of them, and they're quite busy, and they're forever biting and kicking each other, and everybody running about. So I think it's just a bit of an irritation to the elephants, and that's it. It's obviously a game viewer coming to see 1 ton. So that's why you can hear some voices and a game viewer. Andrew, the video guy, is saying, I would love to hide hidden where this camera is filming from. It would be amazing. And also for photography, it would be spectacular to get them from this angle, this viewpoint, this perspective. Really is special. What a delight to have him here for so long. He has been spending quite a bit of time. I thought he may have left, but he's decided, nope, he's going to stick around. So Luca saying, I wonder if he knows he's famous. Luca, I don't think he cares, to be honest. And I don't think he even realizes that we're watching him. But he probably does get a lot of attention from the game viewers. So maybe you'd prefer not to be famous and he'd get himself a bit more peace. But I think it's important that now that he is famous, there's people that want to see him. So there's obviously then more vehicles got their eyes on him. And that does help at least to protect him from those nasties that may want to get him. So there's our vehicle. Obviously, don't want to get them on the picture, but he looks like he might be going over to say hello to them. Right up at the vehicle. He's obviously quite curious. I hope he leaves him alone though and just carries on with his own business, which is what looks like is happening. Okay, now that he's wandered off, I think we'll do the same. Let's go back to Madikwe, but this time Jamala. But I must say, what an experience for those guests as the elephant came past. They came up nice and quietly, and there's obviously lots of space for the elephant. So he decided to go on over to them to say hello. And in this instance, I think the guide is perfectly within his rights just to sit quiet and let the elephant do his thing and then walk off. And that's an amazing experience. It's not to promote getting close encounters with elephants, it's appreciating those when they happen. Um, and especially when the elephant comes to you, not if he's in must and he's looking for trouble, but if he's just curious and or inquisitive, and maybe he just wants to say hello. I've had lots of elephants. I almost get to know them within different game reserves, and often then when they hear my voice, come up to me. But the best thing to do is anticipate where the elephants are going to be going, and then sort of go reasonably within that line, far away, and let them come to you. Then they're coming to your space, and you have every right to sort of defend your personal space. And the elephants respect this kind of behavior. But don't go within, a small game path and block them, because then obviously they're going to have a problem with you being in their way. Lots of room, everybody can move, but anticipating where they may go near to that and let them come to you. That's the best approach, and what I always pass on to the guides as well. But once you're also in that very close encounter, the best is complete silence, relaxed, calm, and let the animal just do his thing. Now, with speaking about the elephants, and what to sort of do, there's one ultimate thing that you should never do, and that's get out of your vehicle. And very recently, unfortunately, there was a passing of a tourist in the Pilansberg Game Reserve, which is not very far from Madikwe. Madikwe, you, you can't do self drives, so Pilansberg is more for that. And I believe it was a Spanish tourist that went in with his friends, family, and got out the vehicle to photograph a small breeding herd, and got trampled by one of the females. Um, and this was after a lot of the sort of people, the witnesses, and the people in his own vehicle were trying to get him back into the car. So a very unfortunate incident, but it does highlight once again the rules that are in the parks are there for a reason. I used to get my knickers in a twist on many occasions in the national parks, in Etosha and in the Kruger, when I see this kind of behavior, because very often, if especially an international tourist gets injured or even killed, very often, the animal then needs to be put down. And it was never the fault of the animal in the first place. So I would always make this known to people, and it would make me very angry. As I've matured as a person and as a guide, um, I just prefer to have strong words, but not to try and not to make a scene. But in this instance, I think the scene was made by the man himself. So I think quite a stupid thing to do, very unfortunate and very sad at the same time. But hence why we have these rules, because these animals, it was a small breeding herd, and I think they may have just perceived a threat, And as I always say, it's normally the younger females that I like to call the bodyguards. They're normally on the edges of the group, especially when they go into a defensive formation, that are the ones that charge people, that potentially kill people, and we as trail guides are the animals that we've got to be the most alert to, and are also the most likely to be shot, because they're the ones that are more likely to attack and defend the herd itself. So I was always more wary of them, and I would imagine that this could have been so in this instance as well. Um, so yeah, let's obey the rules, and let's also help others to do the same if we see them breaking them. Um, it's not like a tattletale show that we all need to go and report people, but we want those rules to be applied and policed by the authorities within the different game reserves as well. Because I do also feel that the authorities sometimes don't make a big enough effort to make people understand the rules. You might be fresh out of Spain, taking a transfer from Johannesburg Airport, and you're in the game reserve, in the next couple of hours. Very excited, and yeah, there's some elephants. Let's get out the car. You haven't even read the permit and the rules, so I think those need to be, made more known, especially to international tourists. But there's also local South Africans that do that as well. So we're not immune, and we are part of the problem too. More people need to understand the rules, and whether that comes from the rangers, the guides, and the gate authorities, I think that would be good. And then enforcement and policing of those rules. People break the rules in the park. I think there should be more punishment as a result. Because within the parks, actually, as I am as well, a peace officer, if I was employed as a ranger, you have the ability to arrest and take those people to a police station and have them charged with breaking of the law, which they are doing. So I think that needs to be imposed a little bit more. And if we have fines, bans, and even imprisonment, I think then people will start to wake up and know that there are consequences to breaking the rules when you're in the national parks. And in this instance, well, the consequence was the man's life. So that's what we're trying to avoid by having said rules. Yeah, another pearl-spotted owlet calling there. And of course, the Natal spurfowl making the racket there. The bush roosters. I must say that the Natal spurfowl has become one of my nemesis out in the bush. I was looking after a camp in Selinda or in the Linyanti in Botswana, and every morning at about 3:30, they would go ballistic, and there was no way to sleep through it. I came very close to murdering them, but I was told by one of the locals that if I kill one of them, the BDF, the Botswana Defence Force, which apparently have eyes everywhere, will be there very shortly afterwards to come and arrest me. So I refrained, but it didn't help my sleep in any way whatsoever, that's for sure. Okay, so I think time to change of place. We're going to stay in Madikwe and we're going to head back to Tau. Now we've got another elephant, a little bit closer. A couple of Egyptian geese there in the water. Looks like a young bull. So it looks like a little bit of a lazy mid-winter's afternoon across all the different water holes. Nice and relaxed though. As we see those zebra trotting through in the background. quietly going about his business, now having a bit of a drink. Looks like this elephant's just having a bit of a alone time or me time. He's pampering himself a bit, I think. So Canine Girl was asking which area has suffered most of the last few years with animal and habitat loss and the reasoning. So Canine Girl, sort of the grassland and fynbos regions, I would say, have probably had the most habitat loss. So the grassland, including the areas around Johannesburg and Pretoria, and even going down into the Orange Free State, because of development, we've got an increasing population, and so a lot of areas being developed in those parts, and then as well as the Indian Ocean coastal belt, which is sort of all the way along the coastline, mainly KwaZulu-Natal, but even heading down into the Eastern Cape as well, and just more development and buildings and so on going up from humans. And those three, I would say, have lost the most habitat. So the grassland, the fynbos, that's more so down in the Western Cape, and the Indian Ocean coastal belt. They've lost the most. And the ones that have lost the least, I would say, are the arid Namakuru, the succulent Karoo, and the desert. Mainly up in the northern parts of the Western Cape, right through the Northern Cape, and even then the western parts of Northwest Province in South Africa. And that's just due to the very arid nature of those regions. So it's not very easy to farm. There's not much water availability, and it's pretty desertified. So that's at the least, as you can imagine, because of the lack of resources for people to actually develop and live there. They can, but it costs a lot more, and there needs to be a lot more logistics and operations involved. So, yeah, mainly down to development. South Africa is an increasing population. We've gained in just over 20 million people in the last 20 years, I think, something or other like that. So lots more people to house and to have infrastructure for as well. And there's red-billed buffalo weavers that you can hear calling too. Andrew, the video guy, saying, I would be in my element if this view was from my cozy cabin looking out over the Kruger Park. No humans, no sirens, no noisy neighborhoods. I think that is a lot of the allure of going to the bush and getting away from the hustle and bustle and those noisy neighborhoods you mentioned. And it is really food for the soul. There's our grey heron. There's also the spurwing goose. And what do we have there? Is that a spoonbill stork, I think? It's gone into the water. That's our grey heron. And there's the other crocodile. Just in the water. Oh, the spoonbill got something there. Hello, the crocodile's on the move. There goes the pearl-spotted owlet again. Also the grey go-away bird. Well, surprise, surprise. It looks like we might get all three of them out of the water. So, it is in fact that crocodiles have specialized cells in their skin called chromatophores that contain pigment and can expand or contract to change the color of their skin. And the color change may be influenced by environmental factors such as temperature, light, and water quality, as well as the crocodile's mood or behavior. Now, taking that a little bit further, in that physiological color change occurs due to differences in hormone levels. While the morphological color change can involve changes in both the density and morphology of the pigmented cells. So Moonbeam Smith was saying the bush has its own noises, but I've learned to love them. Yeah, it is indeed wonderful to listen to, all the different noises and so on. But there's something that I'll never forget in the times that I spent in Namibia in the desert, particularly in parts of Damaraland, as well as areas in the south near to Sussus Vlei, and even past that into the Namabrand Nature Reserve. In that, it's quite incredible to sit where there's absolutely not a single sound and how loud it is. I always found that fascinating. It's so quiet that it's loud. Difficult concept to understand or imagine, but that's what I always felt in those moments when it was super quiet. It was almost noisy in my head because of I don't know, it's just incredible. The little common moorhens. Oh, there's the other crocodile. So that's now 4 accounted for. There's one of the moorhens. It has very long toes, not quite as long as the likes of an African jacana, for instance, but it still does aid in walking across these mud flats and so on. So Victor was saying, first time seeing a crocodile on this side of the dam. Yeah, I have seen one on this side. It was actually when they had a carcass of sorts. I thought it might have been a baby buffalo, but it was a little bit mangled, so it was difficult to tell for sure. But that was when they had it on this side of the waterhole and they were throwing it around quite frantically and obviously trying to eat it as well. But that's the only time I've seen them here, all the way here on this side. So Andrew, the video guy, was saying, Ralph, being closer to the equator in Kenya, do ellies seem different in their skin tones compared to Pilansberg or Kruger? Andrew, I must say I haven't really noticed much difference in their color tones. Mainly more so the soil tones, but in both areas when they are rained on, and obviously then washes off all the dirt that's on them. Right from Namibia to Botswana to KwaZulu-Natal, Mozambique, and up into Kenya, I haven't noticed much of a difference in that skin color tone, so there may be something in it, but in my experience, I would say no. Okay, so I think we're going to change of place yet again, and let's yet again go back to Old Donyo. Where things have hotted up and filled up with elephants. Wonderful. Now we have 4 big bulls here. None of them being 1 ton, I don't believe. It looks like this one on the right here might be 1 tusk. Oh, we've got a little bit of potential fighting going on in the background there. Those two just having a bit of a standoff with each other. They do seem slightly younger than the other elephants. So maybe a bit of youthful exuberance. You always hear that when they knock their tusks together, and that's very often results in sometimes them cracking, and it can also break them off as well. Now the zebra and the warthog's even trying to have a go. Shame this chap doesn't like that the warthogs want to have a drink. I've been talking a lot. Have you not been hearing me? Does look like there's a bit of a change in the mood. I think it might be those youngsters that were fighting, and it sort of just has raised the intensity a little bit, I feel. Let's hope that they don't get down to fighting. So we've seen that one tusk and one ton here regularly. They're obviously very easy to recognize. There's another one with a floppy ear that I've also seen, obviously also a very old bull. And there's another one with a massive rip in his ear as well. But then the other one's a little bit more difficult to sort of identify. But the more we watch, the more we might be able to do so. And Canine Girl was saying, what a gorgeous sighting. Elephants never fail to impress. Absolutely, Canine Girl. And what a way to both start and finish the show with one ton. I think that's the first time that I've achieved that while I've been on the show. So that's the first for me. And I think what a way to continue on this Saturday afternoon. I hope you've all enjoyed the show. And of course, there will be lots more wildlife coming your way. So don't go anywhere. But I think we'll have to give this one the highlights to one ton. And of course, later on, the naturalists will be out and about, seeing what they can find, wondering. I see the news of Tlalamba and her little cubs, so I'm hoping you'll be able to see that. So that's something to look forward to. If they're able to find them, of course, you never can tell. Always the luck. And as I always say, the only constant in the bush is change. So we'll wait and see what happens next time. Well, that's it from me for now. Bush greetings. Give it horns. Cheers, everyone.
Well, a very good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for joining us once again for our highlight show. Yeah, coming directly from Ajuma Private Game Reserve in the northern Asabi Sands. My name is Cedric, and behind the camera with me, we've got Muscles and Paul. Well, in the next half an hour, we are going to discuss exactly what's been happening in the last 24 hours, and we've had some amazing